Welcome to Take 5 for Torah. Today is Tuesday, August 5th, the 11th of Av, and if it's Tuesday, that means we're doing Shmuel Aleph, and we are in chapter 14 this week. It's a short chapter, and in this chapter, Yonatan establishes his military prowess with one lad. He was able to convince the Philistines that they were surrounded. It's an amazing strategy. And in the middle of the story, he tells the lad that if the Philistines do X, we'll do this. If the Philistines do Y, then we'll do that. If they call upon us to present ourselves, or if they say they're coming out to fight against us, we'll do two different things depending on what they do. And incredibly, there is a Gemara in Maseches Chulin that says that this smacks of nichush, of divination. They shouldn't have let their plans be dependent on something that the Philistines would do, which is beyond their control. They should make their own plans. The Gemara says, Kol nichush she'eno ke'Eliezer eved Avraham uke Yonasan ben Shaul eno nichush, which means any divination which is not similar to what Avraham's servant did, who also depended upon something beyond his control to see who would be good for Yitzchak. In other words, something that the young girl would do if she gives me water and my camels. So the Gemara says that this too smacks of nichush. It's interesting that when the Rambam refers to this halacha, he only mentions Eliezer. He does not mention Yonatan in chapter 14 of Shmuel Aleph. Perhaps his version of the Gemara didn't have Yonatan. Eliezer is a little easier. It's before Matan Torah. Eliezer is ostensibly not Hebrew or Jewish. He's from Damascus. So anyway, it's quite amazing that these two very successful stories involved something that violates the Torah, namely divination. The Ran in the Gemara explains that it was not the violation of divination per se that made the Gemara say what it says. It was the type of condition. This is the nature of the condition. If you want to know more about divination, look at the Gemara in Sanhedrin. That's the source in the Talmud for divination prohibitions. The Gemara in Chulin is simply talking about these two stories that had the possible conditions. It sounds like divination. It made perfect sense to determine who should marry Yitzchak based on an element of chesed over whether the girl would not only serve him but also his camels. And it made perfect sense in the case of Yonatan to determine their strategy based on something that the enemy might do. If they behave this way, that means that they're possibly afraid of us. If they behave that way, then it means that they feel they have the upper hand. So we'll determine what we do based simply on on their reaction. And they were wildly successful. The Philistines lost about 20 men, and they determined that they're surrounded, and they left that area. In fact, it was the Hebrew camp that was surrounded, but this small little event in Yonatan's strategy set the stage for Shaul's first grand success as king, beyond the story we learned earlier about saving the people of Yavesh Gilad from the Ammonites, or I should say, saving the right eyes of Yavesh Gilad from the Ammonites. Shaul had success after success after success, and that will lead to the next story, which we'll do next Tuesday, which was the battle against Amalek. He was successful there as well in terms of defeating the enemy, but he veered off of the command, and we'll have more to say about that with the next chapter. But for now, right now, Yonatan established himself as a great military leader, and he was quite famished at the end and dipped his stick into some honey and ate it and was revived, not knowing that his father had prohibited the entire camp from eating anything that day until they were successful. That's part of the story we already learned, but this is conflated into a series of successes of Yonatan, who is by all means hoping to establish himself as a military leader to be the next king of Israel. As the story pans out, we haven't even met David yet, But first we have to have the battle with Amalek, which will take place next week.